And now we're going to look at the perfect storm, part 2. And specifically, looking at the path to war. We're going to look at some of the decisions that showed a reversal of Bismarck's diplomacy, entitling this Rattling Sabers. Now, rattling a saber is an idiom meaning to make a threatening statement or action, and that's exactly what happened in the late 1800s. In 1890, Kaiser William II and the government refused to renew the reinsurance treaty between themselves and Russia. Quite honestly, the Kaiser believed it violated the Triple Alliance. However, Russia considered it a hostility and sought an alliance with France. Later in 1898, the Germans authorized a huge naval expansion. This was in part to ensure that they would have access to their colonies. And as a result, Great Britain built up their own navy in turn. And this led to a very expensive and very dangerous arms race. As you can see in this chart showing warship tonnage, of course that's talking about how many tons of ships there were, you can see how much Great Britain increased theirs, basically as a result of how much Germany had increased theirs. And another result of the Germans building up their navy was in 1902, the Anglo-Japanese Alliance. This was organized between Great Britain and Japan so that the Japanese could protect the British Asian Empire. This way, the British could focus their attention on the European waters. And events became more interesting in 1908 during the Bosnian Crisis. In that year, Austria decided to annex Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now, these were territories that had been administered by them since 1878. Now, on the French periodical to your left, you see a Prince of Bulgaria declaring independence to your right, and the Austrian Emperor annexing Bosnia and Herzegovina to your left, while the Ottoman Sultan looks on. Now, Russia objected to this because it perceived itself as a protector of Slavic people, and they wanted part of the territory to go to Serbia. The crisis came to an end when Germany forced Russia to back down by threatening war. The crisis ended, but Russia built up its military to prevent a similar humiliation in the future. But, seemingly inevitably, something had to start the war. And that's the assassination at Sarajevo. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Ferdinand, the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, was visiting Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia. A Serbian terrorist attempted to bomb Archduke Ferdinand's car, but blew up the car behind him. The failed assassin was a member of the Black Hand, a Serbian ultra-nationalistic group who had 6 people lined up that day to do the deed. Later in the day, as the Archduke attempted to leave the city, his driver made a wrong turn and then stalled his car. That's when Gavrilo Princip, a member of the Black Hand, spotted the car from a nearby cafe. He stepped up to the car and shot the Archduke and his wife, who both died within minutes. Austria-Hungary then sent a 10-point ultimatum to Serbia. Now, most of the demands were met, but not all, so Austria broke off all relations and prepared for war. And this is where it gets messy. Now, I'm not going to expect you to write all this down, but I want to show you the events and how complicated it gets as the alliances unfold. Now, Germany gave Austria-Hungary a blank check. Now, this wasn't a literal blank check, but it was where the Kaiser pledged his country's unconditional support for whatever action Austria-Hungary chose to take in its conflict with Serbia. On July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. This is largely considered to be the beginning of World War I, and this caused Russia to mobilize for war as well. Russia, then France, which was an ally, declared war on Austria-Hungary. In turn, Germany declared war on Russia, and then France. As a result, France and Russia declared war on Germany. Then Germany invaded neutral Belgium. Now, we'll talk about this in greater detail, but this was largely due to geography. Belgium's terrain is largely flat, and it made it easier for the Germans to attack the French, rather than trying to cross through the more rugged terrain in the Ardennes forest between Germany and France. As a result, Great Britain, having an alliance with Belgium, declared war on Germany and Austria-Hungary. Next, the Ottoman Empire declared war on the Allies, and then Bulgaria followed suit. And Italy actually declared war on the Central Powers. Now, being that the Triple Alliance was a defensive treaty, They were not obliged to go to war immediately because Austria-Hungary had started the war against Serbia. So, did you get all that? This cartoon is probably almost as complicated as the description I just gave you. And, as you can see in this pretty remarkable picture, a jubilant young Hitler among a crowd of people in Munich celebrating the German war proclamation. And now to look at the main antagonists in the war. On one side, you had the Central Powers, consisting of Germany, who was the most powerful of all the countries, then Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire. And in the other corner, you had the Allied powers, headed by the Triple Entente of Great Britain, France, and Russia. Later on, Italy joined in 1915. The United States eventually joined, but not until 1917. And being that this was a truly global war, other nations were also involved, including the Japanese, Indians, Arabs, Africans, Chinese, Australians, New Zealanders, and so on. And now we're going to end this segment with where the war began, with the Schlieffen Plan. Now, this map shows the planned invasion of France developed by Count Alfred von Schlieffen, the former chief of the German General Staff. The goal was to take out the French first and prevent a two-front war with Russia. So around 90% of their forces would advance toward France, and the remaining forces would mobilize east to protect against a Russian invasion. From several points around the border, the German troops would sweep through Belgium into northeastern France for a faster advance, and with the goal of destroying the French armies at Paris. Russia was expected to be slow to mobilize, but did so faster than Germany thought. Plus, the Belgians broke many of their levees to flood several areas where the Germans were advancing, slowing down the advance. In the end, the French and British troops were able to halt the German advance, saving France from annihilation, but ensuring this would be a long and costly war.